Total mer bekla de mal tokobets lungi total merkaw Miss Timarong. El total kadang artialo meeting lo banggela Miss Lindsay motil Timarong nga todong lil bekla el ngal karbelaw el al time presidente si Orsel al banggela igal region of Blura Pacific Pacific Island Development Bank belaw atara shareholder sa del bank malungilar mo dum no sa el gup me ngati el me blur belaw el silse los de lo lingit mang me gup me dum ra dala kami tira banking insurance and financial matters al gup mo maskida update tersel tegi del Pacific Island Development Bank gup mas el Mr. Aliar dastal senators mar members sa kamitil guk mo o kera question el girel tegi del bangal dirikal lurbelaw aona ani ownership ring makmal man asulem motil no sa emel al kongati alak madingel legi del tial meeting ring dem happen la last 2 weeks and then tial storm na nga at blue aquam no affect ra schedule gid mang no nik man nga sulam ba sa emal guk mi tegi del te alle medum ramdala committee guk mamaskida update ra tel banga masabila other belan guk ko gitel te alle mo madingek na sing what's happening with our bank tel aurela la bangal mot moklo. So with that, medic introduce for the record, introduce our members Senate, members sa committee ng artiya sulala Vice President Mariur, gaya dirikal member committee nga obang gedre al tutaw, dirikal ngire abang la Senator ngire abang nga Vice Chair committee, dirikal obang gedre mga Inabo, Senator Inabo, niya Chairman ng Ways and Means, dirikal kabangkit. Senator Talams, dirikal ngatiang, Senator Tichena Mangsaw, Senator Tabalwal, Senator Sungino. Tigay gidi ako no sa ilo bangkit al tuta, rurang Presidenta Senate tala medum ng awanding le open na invitation ng marokul senators again mutual ng tutaw di kuidi algyong lekong maguktibom du igel gukra opening statement ang kami terkal sa mong maldire kal gukani akora yoroskura adar kohan ma tigal guk sa lidera PIDB dire kal oisel mong badomu ora tial meeting ergi sulam
Mahal Masawle, Chairman, mga malungil total, moro kami rokul, Senators, ako mahal Masawrate, alalguk ka, no sa PIDB may share some information na bangga. Direkal sa kalomte era, Chairman na Board of Governors na PIDB, o will total moral beklaade, direkal man nga suliwin, ilguk ka, Namos sa Maria Resomi Lawrence Isela, PIDB. Nga ka, hindi ka makatirtel nga rabang. In fact, I think I've worked with some of viewers na ako prior lifer nga kanak part na FIC as their examiner, mga man no makatirtel guri or say. And sira 2019 ya cook ni Lisa idel kwase guk na momrek sa idel part na career nga kamam ni so kalbay o sigat te alra private sector nga open na ate alra bang mga ne first till join na bang January 2020 is their vice president o nga mo nga transition of management sira 2021 mga kapmal din kam North Cal Drual officially February last year, 2022. May January 2020 may angal nga organization na maktira ka diri ka BS, diri ka masub, di aktira ka lamom tabingi ko asing tamal derstangal Radikal dil el selbelaw, may gal dirikal bekal balura Pasifika, amadangali isela PIDB, ma history ringi, ma mokte ringi. May humteera, chairman na board of governors ongin tutaw, may mga asuli, wadi rakal daw nga kasing altanga kakotel. Medo ram tamir al tuta madik po kumter gidro ko kulo koy gel lupdapol mal koy sel do mo ula, maklol meeting rigid. Kukti mam tera pange other sitel sin sirigi dan mura arupak mangamakal tangat tamiting rigi da maigel gukpo to sadar ilang ira kalso kalkmunga malokod dal sus al mura ibatul maraklay tigil nga nagingan marokon rupul belaw mga ebi raklay mga bilong tigil rokon masil belaw mga president rigid Prime Minister Sirigi, mga mirokul other olbi lelom terigi dar other avaluel. El sada maklol toy and hopefully ko mo direk el mesa nga value ra PIDB may galgo courier el gimolasmel. Murulol nga sir other avalu after a meeting ligi dar elang. Malway sa chairman ng kadiso kal I know kasi you yourself ang nga history ra ka el la part rabang and madirakal Vice President, makadirakal malmadang alabang, amla mo bato kal moreng sa presentation ng gidan, and for the benefit, tigal ko, tiga kalsal mo madang aliya, apang gadi gumuul msikita, akadepel ko ra history. I say, may most subes at presentation naman magkakarigal uklangi hopefully gel print out sir kami wa asab amil amoy wanli Mera 1987 na esel al-adal el nga di mo kani tirigaro other all bill legal bekal balura Pacific sel Association of Pacific Island Legislatures Mera 1987 at tiram lotmak tabangi tegi del IDR Regional Development Finance Institution. Mang seral ko tulo mo ulay, tamna envision na ringil mo Micronesian Development Bank. Mang segi del 1987 tirapas ra resolution del mo masub mo conduct ra feasibility study lo mesel kwasing yang sub el viable sustainable organization mo nga mokte karing may tamne conduct a feasibility study lo ba $5,000 sa donation na Bank of Guam. Isagi diri nga amare diri nga Tony Lian Guerrero nga brother na Governor Lulian Guerrero ra Guam lang. Mang tamne engage ringel mlokotel president na FSM nga to siwon na kayama ni attorney sa del time. Mga panggalal mo tara attorney based from Washington, D.C., Arnold Leibowitz, and low ruling amalu sa malbatokal book. So he worked with then attorney Arnold Leibowitz to put together this feasibility study on whether or not a Micronesian Development Bank could be a viable and sustainable finance institution for the region. Mang tirakalmay sa malbatokal balutam na siyabal, malulmay sa tokal balura marigel material all over the Pacific put together the feasibility report that will present ram darirar or other tegi del APIL or sira July 1988 kaya findings tira kasi oy narinya ungil luuling mo rin a regional development finance institution. They really saw a need for it at the time. Matine draft the articles of agreement Ilbol saying nga galbek kalbulura Pacific manglodo ba Pacific Islands Development Bank sira July 1989. So next month on the 5th of July, PIDB mo celebrate 34 years in service throughout the region. So July 5th, 1989, balura balulab, mabelaw, mabulabay, ay gayam negotel baluel mo saying tegi del articles of agreement lumaktub ara Pacific Islands Development Bank ay gayam del kaldal balu am negotel o sisba awdaw dar al silabang gamong mo sa el motokoy Mabalulaab am neko tulos si Sibisel 1 million na ringil fulfill ringil mo belaw ay mo bulabay. Ay galbek kalbulu am loya kuriula. So el alsils hindi ko saray maruk diga kalburing ate a little fulfiller sel 1 million shares ertir. Legal abalura si NMI makwam mabelaw mamarshals mabulabay mabululab ay gigil yam la fulfill ay gel 1 million el capital obligations ertir. And nga rin ay gel baby rablu nalmuta nalmutulosis babatok. Ma sel the board sel slide ratio lol tal kwasel ang telal capital shares ablal pay in rin ay galbek ng shareholders sel balu kada moment sel kwasay kadukuk nga ra girel geresel all patabla. Dira kalso kal share kwasay at 2017 a PIDB am nori sel hotel associate member shareholder el Kwajalein Atoll Development Authority. Klakakaraw sira full-fledged shareholder member ma associate member at yakal vote. So in the policy making bodies ay get rokul shareholder members Saibal, Pelaw, Kwam, Bulabay, Maru, Mabululap, Makosray, Marshall Islands, each get a vote. And it's a two-tiered governance system. Mga ringgelom teera, aolbil, Regalbek Kalbulu, mga ringgelgu kom teera executive branch, Regalbek Kalbulu, and each of them get a vote in policy making. But associate members don't get a vote in policy making. Sa 2017, Esegi del Kwajalein Atoll Development Authority. Al-adal niya, responsible lomukadora apply, raibay. El-mobility al-adra marshal sa Lorio ra Kwajalein. Segi, yam no partner lobeng la PIDB, no first associate member a PIDB. Over the years, na niya, interest ra baby ra al-adal mo associate member, hindi naksel follow through ako or state amnet tartir. And then, since the transition in management that August 2021, sige daral ko kalboltob dengel predecessor ng aging aspects ay malimla mo ba't ka policy changes, construction, policy changes and the way we practice, because our lending philosophy ako change sel ko kalbel sis babesel management ng mutal gibel ngoda out das one. Main construction. So that was August 2021 when there was a transition in management. Okay. Mali highlight talmud baby rabes development, and then we'll keep going with the presentation. So August 2021, I'm not saying the transition in management. Loring re-announcement their position na president CEO or siral vacate the predecessor nga. And so after the whole HR process of interviews and shortlisting and selections, notified nga karstira February 2022 kasi they've decided to award me the position. So since then, in closure lako mo sa Aigel Bebira financial information I'll share in my presentation ng malmle suffer abang because of the pandemic. Dim nakalsal lungila approach handle delinquencies. May gimalmle absorb raklo last ra 2020, and so 2021, 2022 were really where we put in efforts and mend relationships and try to recover back losses rabanga. PIDB was one of, I would probably say, very, very few financial institutions na dim nakangeswal ng government or any agency during the pandemic. di agibay ni roll out tab SL forbearance program sa Lorio Lobantrirar Okya mang modakal tutlil harawa loans. We forgave a lot of interest and fees, and then we continue to work with our business borrowers throughout the region and restructure loans or may efforts ra kamamam ni di nakalso mamar other lose their jobs and their livelihoods during the pandemic. So whatever we could do to help businesses survive and remain resilient so that when things got better, they were still there and they could still do business, that's what we really set out to do. Or set out 2021, ma 2022. Policy rabang kasing bekkarakal change over officers sa Board of Governors. Sa Board of Governors sa sige del Clol Board del Lomesa, Board of Directors ma operations sa bangga. Mang sira September 2022 ngam no sa chairman ma vice chairman ma secretary ra Board of Governors. Direkal 2022 agim lo start telo may sa abalulo meeting. Adam lo sa sila dira Zoom meetings, and I learned quickly kasi board ra PIDB in particular mal practice tilo may sayal bekal el balu el conduct board meetings firma business of the bank, and I quickly learned that kasi sel advantage say as a collective decision making body ang mal neklo tutelela albol visit tayo albalu elomesa ra business environment albol mitektigel okya karabang gelbolo tingil kwase how do their decisions then impact the local communities and what kind of impacts that our business was making all over the region. So ayuli lutel start ta in-person meetings regal bekal balu magimlaw meeting ra Bulabe mama churo makostaray ilang nagira mal mo meeting ra abululaban di tamna mo start the labi ra mama har other board the kwase FSM national inauguration sa ang alaal sila July mang last story del mo o mayor say gidil magil almutal mo ra Bulabe ra next month dira kalwarap isel ice aruk malmlo makatirat suspend membership or tier sila 2011 igalbek kal shareholder members igalbek kal baluwa mlaringi sel timeline gidi dalol tirak kalingi emit their sel 1 million subscribed capital share obligations or tier ya ruka makosra ya dimna kandi el alkora manguyuay gel historical records say ya ruk sel malmle far behind the edim na kal show or demonstrate the effort ter tier lukura sa Maria Resori del participate trabang kamang 2011 Board of Governors decided to place them on suspension of membership. Mang mlodyakal actively to siga projects nga rarukal finance madirikal mlodyakal sabiil participate in board policy making activities mang mlodyaka umteerti regal board ra governors sa director level. And then sila last year bolbe sa chairman chairman ra board ang speaker ra ni Tijela speaker sel Olbila Marshall Islands engge mal lamo makatirat adra APIL ako philosophy niya ngo marangal ko asay also may other represent the Terogil region, and every area of the region has to be represented in the policy making bodies. So ngulu marangal ko asay if we invite Chuk back, perhaps we can add a positive incentive for Tirigal Maredra Rukar El Angal. By most of Maria Lolsis shares here. And that's what ended up happening. Magi mosta management ta mosta talo may silmoraru, mitalo bantri our leadership raru. Tiga mal tim na mo miga kanila. Hingel speaker raru or elang in fact the other belaw. So family rammer style iwal. May since gibom start talmutul re-engage or tir etam na exceed 50% of their required capital share injections. Emla kamit tal fulfill their 1 million and then some this budgeting period or this fiscal year for them. So agimal kasa Maria Lorio Lobantriling tam na mo story me mutul part rapangi. conduct business. So kusray matadira kalmal lamok med the angora the internal politics er tira ulmay. Hindi madela 75,000 et tira reach yourself 1 million and the gurati gamayo the process er tira fulfiller say. Tira kalwan ra besel isla banga. We all know kasi Deloitte and Touche left the region. May lumakatel time performers del independent audit bank, and then last year we had to engage a new audit firm may omis financial rabang magim na engage Burger Comer Magliari CPAs. May tultabadiya audit report bangers April. So I've hand delivered a copy of our annual report that's together with the bank's independent audit report for 2022. Lamo available and published on our website. So the good news is 2022 was also a very capital year for the bank. Lagim na manage lomo attract capital shares. And it's the new capital injections that's really allowed us namostat lolto da best program namostat sabamal afford the lol nga serar adara balu legim na mo change the approach to lending and development finance in general. So I'm hoping that I get that across the presentation lang. Please stop me anytime if you have questions. Oy. Gimna mo tayo adal lori rabang kasi rakot mo join and dimne ingel presidency or sige del time mga kama Rosa de los Santos Wilbacher lang rabang almal makatlekat ng manager of administration. Hindi na kalingariya amle admin assistant mla promote mo loan service specialist and admin officer. And then September last year gimne hire a loan officer loan officer Mr. Jamie Angimea. If madigam ne March al year that we added another admin staff Rosa giblam shift Rachel to the lending side of the operations. Magim na mo 5 ligi malamol mutal giram add on to our team maling malmlamo ka interest volume of work has expanded. At talagi mo mestring ilang by either short-term contract or hire right out local staff. Moringa tegal balu on an island on the ground del sub ilol nga sir mamal process babiere communicate laban tiar okya. Okay. Malatyagi the listing of shareholders and those share capital stocks that have been paid in. Although missing balula ba ownership sharing ira bang at 29%, just over 4.4 million in share value. Abalula ba mlekotol fulfiller sell 1 million sharing and then el mutulosis ba about 438,000, and then through legislation in 2017 etira Hamuli sel YAP Development Loan Program osis about 3 million rabang, not as capital shares but to seed fund the YAP Development Loan Program. So samne mokta kaniya ol nga sa tourism, transportation and trade activities Michael businesses so rin mo like activities. And then sira actually narapan getira not makar other always say del timing speaker tira Vincent Figure. Engemne sual convert higel YAP Development Loan Program funds to capital shares. Through legislation at the Solve or Sell program, elam na mo dagim recognized or sell program may terms and conditions blel specified in your other olbi lablul ablese kwase give loans and more gidil sectors at 7% interest fixed and ay gidil criteria almost qualifier at melam la modak sige del program agim na convert the loans that were financed under that program to our regular commercial lending portfolio. hindi ka malamal apply yung terms and conditions because we're bound to it by it's contractual. Ay loan closing documents or deal. May DL alta may 3 million restricted capital shares ablal converted mo capital shares maul mo they're shown as now the largest share owners that abang let them na pay in more than $4 million altogether. Saibal fulfill 1 million capital shares or tier in the mid 2010s. And then last year, outgoing Governor Ralph Torres ne sual lolsi sabra 1 million in funding and mukta karingiyam ne sual maldi address or sell out migration issue lulmes ringa saibal. They were losing a lot of their teachers, a lot of their health service workers, law enforcement. Ayel gora lumdas swimli essential services to their civil society. They were losing a lot of people in those sectors. So he wanted to start a program al address or say and the process that they were also trying to raise their minimum wage at the time. But, you know, politics and how it plays out, you guys know better than me. So, maldim ni administration na ringi yamel kasi tiyangan sa amal di ka place terms and conditions ringi earmarked for our purposes. They're your share funds. Hindi na malultirak. So, yulmo or sell program for essential workers, which was primarily a housing program to offer affordable home financing for tirigel employed in those sectors, tirigel sensei, tirigel loryo hospital, tirigel loryo ablabulis, and all of the first responders. So within 6 months, that $1 million was fully deployed, and we've built 7 homes for teachers and healthcare workers and law enforcers. Din nga Saibal, but also Rota Matinyan, which were areas that I see in MI that not even the Commonwealth Development Authority would finance projects in because they felt it was too big of a risk. Yeah, Bank of Hawaii, Maigal Bangara Marigel, will not do home loans in outlying areas because of the risk there. So PIDB became the only financial institution to put out a program like this, and has been the only financial institution where the rest of the financial sector is raising rates, we're lowering our rates. So Segida, one of the pillars of success, I think, are Segida program Rasaibal, Yablo Lomes Ringi FSM RMI, Emal Losori. So just this past April, we received $1 million from the Marshall Islands Development Bank. Marshall Islands in the region. So el spare saludo the citizens of Marshall Islands and Ngarakwam, Saibal, FSM, Belao, sorry the lomkot or ablirir, or start a business or tir. So those types of things are blabbles that will understand our shareholders. They bring in the money, they give us objectives or where they want to target, and then terms and conditions that make sense for their citizens or their constituents, and that seems to have been working out well. Last month in May, Yakwama Ulsisaba, another $1 million. Esemle commitment tra Governor Lulian Guerrero or sira April Micronesian Islands Forum and ngara Bulabe. PIDB am longal tangat most of elmong present before the Micronesian Islands Forum principals. We're committed to putting in an additional 1 million on top of our subscribed 1 million capital shares. Et yaka restrictions meaning it's a very generous capital injection because now they're saying this will get put on top of the general pool of funds that PIDB can use for lending anywhere. So, support that our shareholders that see the value in what we're trying to do. Neso mamel roll out the affordable housing program Akwam before the typhoon. So we were already working with the Mayor's Association engineers, insurers to try and come up with a build concept that'll make it more storm-proof or storm-resilient, insurable, and most of it withstand like climate change type of consequences and then the hurricane hit. So maybe now we will have lessons learned de most of it sige program.
Especially,
Yes.
akora masada igil gukpes at program ay kalbe pira balu igil ito convert mo regular shares at nguangara terms ma interest igil regular loans shares at same loan adal mora ngarinya akora adur tringi lo urma
Ooy. Ilan loan programs that Malgim administer. Core lending programs are our direct loan programs, our commercial direct lending, consumer direct lending, and residential home direct lending. Direct lending the most general pool of funds. Although they fund, commercial loans range from 6 to 10%. Range because aboard the mamla adapta policies of amalolangata interest rate depending on whether or not applicanta meets certain criteria. If you have good credit, if you have sufficient value in your collateral, if you have an existing relationship with the bank, if you've had stable employment, all of those things interest rates. So we've funded business loans as low as 6%, or home loans as low as 4%, or consumer loans as low as 8%. In fact, we just rolled out el consumer loan program el repayment guaranteed because na sayang na MOU lo bangela finance administration kasi sell allotment adel meharaw loan ringin mera PIDB adakal sabelangi dil adel dingin motorist ringi or change ringi unless they work with PIDB. And the surety that our customers have is and they demonstrate kasi they truly are experiencing financial hardship or they have a need for these funds to be shifted for a temporary period of time and then resume. It's not just a stop and go measure. So things like that and those mechanisms in place, the cost of borrowing and more okyak. Just our lending philosophy kasi we need to make sure that there's sufficient money in the pockets of our borrowers because they're the ones who are spending and stimulating our economies. So that's why we're willing to work with them when there's a demonstrated hardship and whatever you can and then penalties. So those are the things that we're doing. And then specialty loan programs program CNMI for essential workers. Kada home loan program del program ibay. Staff na ako sorry din malko tal gibora ay gal balut kasi home. All of the nicest homes on I don't know if you guys have ever been to Ibay, but all of the nicest homes on Ibay are PIDB projects. And I just thought let's not go around saying that. Okay, it's true. All of the nicest homes on Ibay really are PIDB projects. And then, dida kan na moring sige del MIDB Business and Residential Loan Program sige silbel funder ya Marshall Islands Development Bank. Lalo nga certificate citizens ra Marshall Islands al nga rakwam saibal belaw ma FSM. Lomo la business certificate mablay. All of these programs umuul with the core terms and conditions of policy ramam and then management trigal representation on the board of governors, my board of directors, and then come up with customized terms and conditions almo at their economic and social situation. So there's ways around policy and practices that we've been able to start implementing. Attention mar adal sorry and me. Another thing is forbearance. So sira 2021 el kotel nga management position akne introduce ayel PSL program for forbearance businesses that were heavily impacted by the pandemic and the lack of tourism activity. So, tatira ka nga nga business they'll required they'll make payments up to today. But they're doing other things for the bank will benefit and it's kind of like an exchange of service that we do with some of the local vendors and suppliers for our customers to try and help them stay in business while at the same time accommodate their cash flow hardship. Sorry, I feel like I've skip ahead. Any other questions? Loan programs? Yeah. May kind of staying on the programs. Kamama, we transact and we do business primarily electronically. Lagi headquarters kamama nga ra kwam obis ra bang still First Hawaiian Bank building ra mighty. So I don't know if you're familiar with nga Route 8. Dim nakalmat naman la First Hawaiian Bank building ra typhoon mawar. Direct dim nakal sal moring aklol dam a little bit of flooding. We were very relieved. Ay systems giblem test al super typhoon whether or not our server could survive, whether or not ay processes giblam put in place as far as disaster management and recovery. Gimnet test all worked fine. We were still able to transact and do business even throughout the typhoon if we had internet access. Application process ako lang mo simplified. Gimnet change application forms na ma'am, roll checklist na ma'am require. The whole objective was to make access to credit and capital easier, not more complicated, and to make it affordable, not more cost prohibitive. So the two objectives we had in mind when we were trying to prepare for what comes after the storm, even and what comes after the pandemic. So ilang sabil access sa roll application forms sa mama checklist online, download. That's already the low meeting. We either schedule a Zoom or a call, and then we take them through the whole application process. It used to be before, from start to finish, presuming a kwasigi receive a complete application process, it would take somewhere between 60, sometimes even 90 days from start to finish. Elanging, we've reduced that to no more than 30 days from start to finish, depending on the complexity, because some business applications can be a little bit more sophisticated than others. The housing consumer loans, in no time. We're the only ones that that can do more than 100% financing. And okay, what do you mean by that? More than 100% financing. Cost project plus all the pre-development closing costs. Plus, if there's sufficient value in whatever security we're taking to collateralize the loan, we can do debt consolidations or offer a secondary facility. Almora business will interested in doing expansion or improvements. So, we're also the only player in town, Kwama, Saibal, and I think now in the Marshall Islands, we don't require a down payment, and we can finance cost of borrowing, fees, administrative closing costs, escrow fees, so and then what used to be requisites for approval or requirements of approval, amnamo requirement that alone, but not necessarily approval, because our other by sorry pre-qualify. So before you get, run through the ringer, we tell you first the sell amount requesting qualify India. As I'm qualifying why. And then we try to come up with alternative solutions so that they can still access that financing, but maybe at, different types of terms and conditions than they originally thought. Akum dasway process sam na mo mreeda talgibal bayot mang na mo kloa interest madirekal na mo kloa demand for some of the products that we're rolling out, especially our housing or ilang. This wakal mutan go back here. Okay, so all in all, about 15.5 million value share capital that is paid in. Did you get familiar with the articles of incorporation? Adimle authorized up to 18 million in share capital. And so the tikmedong adra board of governors amogili low meeting raise their cap on paid in capital shares. Hopefully most of it commit to putting in more and just the Marshall Islands alone last meeting amla pledge $5 million more. And that's coming out of their compact funding. I think they already built that in somewhere because they want to do housing development. Activities or theories, land reclamation, because they want to be able to expand the surface area they have to develop on. So elang marala talks in the Marshall Islands will further expand their fishing business. Alastik Narcea, Mimura was talking about the potential to partner with some company to open up a cannery business, a tuna loin packaging business. I think they're wanting to expand their fisheries activity on the private sector end.
Sabem lugar adi wais lo aset tirgel ngarbela lokya kargao tamgaral gantak trabang ke ngaraigel teletal voltru ngi letel meeting adrel moda gimne askara chair kamitil wasit ka pod meeting ngi adrel ko atrai lo patial mora buain bolsmela buain mamadali abang e bolotingel wasit ka tamgara pod apply Gora direct presentation or direct Lucas Comtral expanda mutra employees recommend morning repra Bangra Igal Bekel Bloom direct Luka mo Tatser Segide. I give me a chairman direct mitra SPDC Goram trial asking my meltending Nodibus sell time and you must a little no way. Yung sa ikid direct ko ra lolo nga siya radra application tira bang magi ko ra mas sa podda que da litel mo sapira la o better ada blue mo lo sois para bang que bolo tingel asen nga que apelo programs ngam ko ra complain mo ara ko ra at least ko ra recommend nga gal balu
na sulang Vice President lang Vice el after the 11 o kya kara panggal ngarbelaw may ela seldo sadra what's available capital to lender al sila blurbelaw selmo tilang tingil wasel ang Abela ul sisibiya 1 million. Esel domestic yal loan portfolio rabang garal kotulo mo ul mala loans although may ang sel kotel earliest loan on the books of PIDB is in 1999. Okay, 1989 and 99 ako rahmal ka mga time di ka lending activity at yang agile lending institution. Because for the longest time PIDB one of the challenges tayil ngasonga sa capital ring iray bekal balu elang dabay malngal tangat teling namo to ka do the losses lagi ba yosiga projects finance we have to bear in mind that kwasa igang do dira bebidar adra balum dakal sabed qadi biyotarude do level funda projects el ngara bebira abalu diga alosis about de mang diesel do mesra kukmal di lending activity al sila blur belaw 1999 el mer el angin there have been 30 loans granted and funded al sila blur belaw to the tune of 2.3 million, so more than double Palau's paid-in capital is the value of investments in Namisois Brazil Blur Belao. At the same time, ang nga gel, makita mo rin ilang mga gel loans ada di kalharaw. Mangira del charge off. Esel the charge off, esel loss regidel, or sel charge off is absorbed through capital because it's capital we're never getting back. So we're never going to be able to reinvest that capital that's not paid. May ilang nangaringa charge offer belaw, ya klungela, although the blood charge offer nga belaw, the recovery is more than 500,000. Okay, so 30 loans to the tune of 2.3 million in total investments at Abulur Belao, but 500,000 was not repaid. So think of that 500,000 that you never got back and that never generated revenues or interest income. So it was never allowed to contribute to the growth of capital for Palau that we could use to relend. So ilang mali simple math, iqdome sa kasi may malklol nga song sa aududel belaw sa the low sparing il finance projects ra rabalu. Because of those losses, dim na haraw.
Coming. Makarang recover ay ludo.
Good question. So like loans amlar nga assets securing may labang nga order like assets gira mal mongil strategize at kwaseging makanang especially real estate lang utma. Hindi ka lungil timer elang al doltaraw utma. Lang dakal sabi they'll recover sell full value ra utman sabi they'll realize ringi in a better economic environment. So what we're doing now is we're looking at the foreclosed assets o mes kwasembay makarang the convert taigay almo cash flow generating assets. So the plan now is, but because ang songa sa capital shares er belaw, ang gira almosi ga kukod al ulele sa pamal develop by gigil assets, mang most of el cash flow generating assets or income generating assets. Mga nga utmalora nga dabang lang from loans that have defaulted and have been charged off. It's just a matter of how to properly manage those and may further loss to the bank. Because since amalot raw, ligi mo raw, we wouldn't even recover half of what was charged off on those loans.
After blam go through legal process.
Same na after give them through legal
Okay,
process.
na mo blakatak masing apang kam na take over igil collaterals mo sa either komoltra or do something to make it revenue generating.
Oh, I see. Ilang attorney referrals ako the last ditch effort ra banggit. It's never been a standard practice for the bank to automatically move to foreclosure. By ako tagi ma-audio lobang yelo okya kal malamol mara repayment plan. That's reasonable. Sabela adal even though am la modekal am la tsuburera business mam la modeka business na modeka role haraw from business income and gukos pa personal income ringi malamol mal haraw ra loan ringi and you can never once a loan has been brought to that litigation process namodakal sabela bangal mutal reverse ringi, so that's why it's a very last ditch effort. Manggotal ka mangatal time from default to foreclosure seruk history da PIDB black pole aswar. And plus hindi kalswala bangal absorb ay legal costs associated with foreclosing and Especially abela FSM Marshalls. Ako tal expensive dolas foreclose on business or personal assets.
Kadyo kay kay kang kestra kay utumum komul tral mo ngel kotel takay lom ar patang girol tral meraba adre belaw mablur belaw ay sumay gal utumang ar belaw siya kati sokan mo
Sel bangal move to foreclosing kakalos sa process for kakalos sel bangal dingo PIDB would put them up for auction. So it's a public process. So rula announcement there ma'am radio newspaper notified abuel kwasi abang mo nga niya tarawal assets ng utama and then it goes through the bid process. So
pero ako giraman mo smikro lele kada tagada kay geling taputukarin ang dudil si ilmar eng atmel bela mo wa kwadi mo to may ka problem or dita amatera dudil kita tabi close tiadi akatel atmel bela or kwadi mo elmora imore ada takal kegil to ko e kami ang arse gide mata mo pero eng kita vice president ro oreng seling conference ko kuradi no taigel mera chairman wa seigal kita atmen bela ul kura kwabasa malakadi dengan lom ni lo arar ngodol ade potong mururi lu sing sin sangari interest ra am trengarti albange kom kura mata de elbo has pile rak pade lo sing temakasar gi la bai sai disira udol si in marai el trigibla atmen bela al mar imori ngodol ade nakal ge krel tokol kuk masa imala pelara atamel sige dawadi soal siya
direct I know kasi mal common ride lo yakya bangaling amagot eda kadil ansel belaw FSM Marshalls mel ang usisiteleta lamagot tagi approach ra para where ma family ringi kasi lang nga lo bangalil so I'll take over. And that's a preferable option than putting it out to bid or auction. May agi hindi also mamal take away assets that are other, especially blay or especially agil maybe what was once or a clan owned or family owned len de tira kuftim na tukule ada dimneswal mamalay ralo ne ol sir. So last resort they put it out to public auction. Like I said, by rather than sale, by somam convert it into an income generating asset for the bank and either do a lease out or lease to own or turnkey type of project.
What kind of partnership do you have with the Eagle Baby Development Banks? NDBP for Palau, NDBP, FSMDB, in terms of mo problem loan. Ngani ako ra partnership with the bank masing sabiil maara gigidel bad debts titiril on their own process at ngani gigidel ko arrangement that you have with the other NDB development banks?
Dakal formal process existe at time listed October last year. Egal Rogul FAS Development Finance Institutions, FSM Development Bank, Marshall Islands Development Bank, National Development Bank Arbela, PIDB, lot magim no so formalized al other ma'am. So that thing mo sab amal mi mokal kay ngesew mo yemay. And one of the ways is PIDB as a regional institution in order to free up some of the development banks' capital to relending sab amal purchase their loans or tira sab ilguk purchase loans sa kamamal suming sorry build up their portfolios in a quick amount of time. Ding ay gal local development banks sorry ra clean portfolio. So they will not, this is based off of our conversation last year, they will not purchase any loan that has a history of being non-performing in the past 24 months. So if at any one time, adam lam or business lam mo pas na 90 days past due in the past 24 months, and dial part sale purchase portfolio.
Aman masulang I'm still lang motive for taking the time magora may o ay sa isilabang ka. Mang ako talaga diga agora agilala how the institution is organized yung arakwam mang giri ulol tirak lagil banking laws arakwam or antiak and mang silbay saying do you have to meet ayil liquidity requirement ayil gora regulatory requirement ra banking system ramrigel al ubendia with that diral zalo here lo sengara gora rate of return requirement for the bank is it does the board that the setter say mayil risk assessment ra bank gora wangaranga who regulates that and make sure that we don't put the institution into el mo sabi nga niyo yung the default where portfolio ra blue half is non-performing loans. That's not acceptable in a regular banking system, right? You know that as a long time bank examiner for the commercial banks. Mang sige da ko raso al loger ngira alwasing how does the bank operate under that evitate uger alwasay kamdenge igal commercial banks ng harbela mal kloa deposit serni el nga outside ra blue bela man di kalol nga sera community ra blue bela there is no kaya contribution or tiral mora development ra economy rigid mang how do we makarang ato ko ra aramula baby rigid el deposit sel mo by mo through rakawal a PIDB operate ra like inside the United States and most of irel ko ra accept sel risk return requirement at tiring most of edel by tap into that deposit through PIDB the channel like a ludo may local economy. You know what I'm talking about, like, you know, a lot of deposits like commercial banks are the invest outside of Lupela. Dekal finance ang deal project sila Lupela very small. Manakural the same as
So lang Madam Chairwoman. First question I think is about whether or not PIDB is subject to regulation. A short answer on diak. So when PIDB was established in 1989, and they were purely lending institution, dim nakalola ya deposits, and so dim nakal fall under the purview of U.S. Regulators, even though they were based on Guam. Aigel capital shares el input tahmal dim ne government funds. Mandim na gigil government el lotma konge el part the shareholder members ra institution na oversee sources and use of funds el mo through the PIDB. 2001, ya PIDB amlo registered as a tax exempt non-profit organization at Aquam. So we have that tax exemption at Aquam and logiwa legislation at Aquam and direkal yagim subject to any regulatory bodies in the territory or federal. These still gira malol tirak standard accounting principles el by auditors tigal PSL auditors rakamama it's come to our attention al kwasengira malbay clarify the presentation of our financials because agidiro ko spera FASB and they feel like amararing yagira malo spera GASB or some variant because we're a nonprofit. Ilang, as far as whether or not we have risk return targets, yes. But profitability, the main concern it's whether or not we can properly absorb those losses, and that's why we need a sufficient cushion in capital reserves and support the losses. If the past 10-year history, the bank has actually been very profitable up till 2018, 19, 20. It's although sa financial financial performance mal correspond with the health of the bank's loan portfolio. So, the Mr. Sel red area on this graph, those are the bank's non-performing loans. We reached a peak of 64% of our portfolio became non-performing at 2020. And, we could say it was just the pandemic. I think many of these loans were already in trouble, era pandemic. So the question became, okay, so what happened? It was really the deterioration of the bank's relationships with its borrowers and our representatives on the respective boards. May segid yagibla mola sa mutul malisi aringi. And it's a matter of building trust. And so, tirigan los tobal haraw, aklamat digari kasi tirigan lo take for granted that mong abang kangarakwam, hindi mo nakaadal malom ka doon, hindi mo nakaadal do site visits, hindi mo nakaadal mo mang monitor. So, all of those things now have been fixed. And as of the end of 2022, I gave na reducer sa non-performance from 64% to just under 20%. And from a regulatory perspective, non-performance is the easiest risk to address. Because when we think of credit risk, that's all we're thinking about, the risk that someone is going to stop paying. So we've been working on ways to incentivize people to continue to pay by working with them to find reasonable rates to pay in an environment that is not conducive to generating any more cash flow than what we can reasonably expect. So, I gigi the restructure sa ulmaman la moryo non-performance sila ma'am. Sel internal target na non-performance sila ma'am and nothing above 15%. And that's fair for a development finance institution, because there will always be the strugglers lang kamamabang gartirigel diakal sabiral moraigal pepira financial institutions that access a credit and capital. So that was the justification for higher interest rates, because we have to price in the higher risk. But at the same time, in this environment thing, we've found better ways to mitigate that risk of default, because ang amal keep rates low while at the same time ensure kasi cash flow amal mo. Because if you raise rates, that risk is actually higher, because people can no longer afford to chase the interest that accrues. But if you demonstrate that kasi del payment tira ka satisfied ng interest kimkira man malaringi, while at the same time tira ka reduce ra principal ra over time, sige incentivize ra adal mo so al haraw ra loan. But month after month, year after year of making your payments on time, and then you're still in debt up to your ears has been the wrong approach for some of our borrowers. Because we're not regulated, then sabaamal be a little more flexible.
Okay, so Marlungil, you seem to be meeting that development goal rigal albalu. ako kira masemang elangi tangariya ko ra adra belawal they've been interested in getting the loan and they've been told that masendia ka you're close and them accept besa loan aling dikauto say da ko ra what has been kanya couple of people el ko ram la ask na halwa say they've been told that senda do nasa imlalo
akama malamol may mala applications or kama we don't close the applications in fact in paiso malamol may mala applications so I can demonstrate to potential donors or to our shareholders kasi there continues to be demand. In fact, there is growing demand. So if there's any way for additional funding or if there's any way to work together to attract additional funding from other sources, ay tinakagidam na wait listed. So right now it's just a wait list. And it's a wait list not so much as, you're waiting for Palau to put in money. You're just waiting until management can evaluate aygel financial sources in-house si Omeso kasi nga nga aygel mo sa amal ko. Kaulungoy among mo sa amal fund one at a time while not alerting the other shareholders that we're now tapping into what should be encumbered for their projects finance projects sila blue. So elagim na wait list I wanted to show you that listing. These are actual applications received. Applications or pre-qualifications. This does not count the inquiries that we've gotten. This does not count na maybe submit a business plan or maybe submit a proposal or the email so this is just the formal applications that we've received that have been waitlisted. Elakla instructing a loan officer mamad ko same statalo sa new construction because tangani trigel may ukti sorry del home improvement here but they want to consolidate debts to lower their repayment or they just want the more favorable terms and conditions that we offer at this time. Di prioritize BSL construction because we think this is still meeting our mandate of accelerating development, new construction work. And we're tapping into funds in the general pool. The sales strategy we're spreading out disbursements so that we realize cash flow as they come in to fund the next tranches. So it's just those kinds of creative ways of thinking. Submit applications. In fact, please, if I submit the applications, you will eventually get your application through to processing. The sell funding or say gidel wait list fundra everyone at the same time.
Okay, kakawatim lang sir, selwa question about accepting deposits. Meron obla po non-profit organization formally organized in Guam. Still, hindi kasabi will accept the deposits.
Why say?
From anybody, hindi from this ngidel paid in capital.
Why say ngidel paid in capital or ngidel associate membership or ngidel a borrowed funding arrangement like we have with the USDA or the Marshall Islands Development Bank or the FSM Development Bank. So we borrow money and then we have to repay it over.
Okay, my last question is among what mechanism and maybe help other that has lost their homes in the storm probably they'll qualify Malaya FEMA assistance.
Magibay mengira other olbi ra kwam kind of give us direction saying how do we fit in el mora post typhoon recovery efforts like gidi el makot ay sir kama kasi gagid may gagid that covered or these certain groups that are covered and then mo sa amal cook draft policies or a special program around that. But then again, it comes down to seed funding. So nga rasel mo source lon nga Sir Adelar, adra Marshall, sa mar adra FSM already nga niyaw duty rin nga sila bang galon nga Sir Adri rin nga rakwam. So that, you know, it's easier, less sophisticated for us lingupti gamamalorier lobantira leadership or tira kung kasi okay, so we're gonna set aside this percentage of your source funding from the FSMDB or MIDB, nga certigal citizens or kami that were impacted or that suffered damages or tiyang to help repairs or buy cars that were you know, whatever. Ding abelawa ngorat tira ka direction from leadership or kasi nga ako sa amanrulin mo or other belaw nga rakwam. So I'm trying to find funding for projects at Alcel Velao. So I think if you want to earmark funding, it would be a different conversation.
Emotil, kadi follow-up per sel, garila inabo. Sel under segi del status sergi del non-profit. As a lending institution, nga niya limitation aklungela capital sa PLT Albangal operate up to that nga niya ko cap lasing besides sel requirement bylaws article of incorporation. Kasi sabi as entity in sa shareholder sa sabi lifter say. The as far as federal requirement nga niya requirement cap na say as a lending institution and sabi only come up with this spots capital mobile lending. I know I know there's some kind of a regulation in the masingani capital that we're limited to
understanding is because the establishment bank is by statute. So all of the members had to enact some kind of statute to enable membership in this institution. The documents are submit the Mura Department of Revenue Tax for this 501(c) code or non-profit coding. Tiram na instructor bang other than the annual reporting the shareholders maklungila shares or tier matigagidar other board, there's really no other restrictions or requirements for PIDB so long as we continue to restrict our operations to the region. So elanda as edalos pe aududa del lol nga sir ar other FSM nga Hawaii, for example, or that's at the low spe aududa the lol nga sir anywhere out other than ayayil balwadan members.
SLGUK hindi ka restriction under our existing article of incorporation limit selwal share individual member. Hindi ka cap individual member klaseng.
Hindi ka cap individual member. Board of Governors used to be self-financing activity funding levels in country is capped at the value of shares that you've paid in. But a Board of Governors lifter say kasi once expender sel mongotolosis about the tigal shareholders sis about the dictate the kwasing so mama mo urangan program or so mama target ranganang ay the terms and conditions so mama apply for this and this and this reason. But once that money is repaid, it becomes part of the general pool of funds for lending anywhere in the region. So the restrictions as far as lending activity goes.
Okay, nakakulugar siya pa isling kung nasa siya din ang information about that ngali. So in the event kidal policy makers decide na say let's look into a possibility of injecting additional capital marabang guk mo support ay del guk loan demand ra particularly other belaw. Akom na sa sige da dire kalungil bato ng alile. Sige da yapal na ang 29% tra ownership other yapa dire only handful dire kal liway gidel. Akom na sing lagi da lo message sige
Motilak tira kal gora mamnetat saigil wal gora na default na foreclose saigil loan wal gora na gora bang ilabang sa loan na gigidel klalo rablur belaw.
Why say?
Why say?
Because government
Mukha di abang amay ka.
owner, oo.
Okay. Aktugar saigil nangya bel mention niya chair inabo Raigel commercial bank ang ngarbelaw wal dilor top da galudo de kal investa blur belaw kum tasen na segi del dekal sibil klo na klor belaw especially utum mendekal sibil hospital collateral ay loan kum ta segi dia issue man adire kal abay girela olbi ratial listen na increasing in 99 years kum ta segi dal lagi del hospital ngi mga do ay galbang mang mo sibil hospital may kola accept tagal utum collateral le usper seguir en nari nani lisel guk mai sibil gu ultra or ta developer el sergi del na como seguir de la sibil los per ngi te ol mdakal kanya investable velas te gidel wasen dakal sibil o nang del claro velaw seguir da blur amerikel dim lakal lorula investir ni sel bornga nari nani lisetem kilngel modura ay kaletas tiadi wa do na tel claro kung ba seguir ya isum ereng na sel abay olbi la lagiren mo orol girel seguir mura commercial bank
Why say sige da dire kal challenge el giblam encounter ira FSM ling noring ay gel utamal lulus pe elul sirsra alone ra bangal projects ra mamam na ra pulabay went through litigation process ay gimalasam el malay tiram no question el kwase a PIDB as an entity ang sabail ang sab itam nom tigari kwase ang sabail OOI bank becomes a trustee owner so they're issued an actual certificate of ownership as a trustee owner agel assets sa sabail transacted either sell or lease.
Ngari adiwan el krike. Akmorawan na meeting so medik askatya ura-ural komeng. So sel mo sel loan portfolio since 1999 gigidel. Ay gigidel mla charge off loan Ako may cycle value ngin di amount original amount of 444.5 disbursed amount of 455 dia ka payment hindi mo naka email payment really awol mo na charge off so kung may sel kam boro mungis mo dia awan reggae.
Okay. So, ulamalo na mo charge off selgot tagyo sellable dori lingala ka 60 sellable 90 days singam na mo consider the non-performing. Non-performing abal wala kasi gim na recognize at kasi ang tiyangam na mo kal haraw ring loan namang na mo gim realize ay gel cash flow ring na mo gim realize ay interest income ring maulmang mo non-performing. Sellable non-performing ama mas tatal maluos el more okya kasi aliyah balsem es el final notice of default el final notice of default takmura okya kalkul kasi mla mo bato lulaklat ka erong either hindi ka bring your loan current or hindi ka kamharawa enough mo cover ay gel pass through madire kal bring your interest el mechero or hindi na ka responsive mer ka ma'am or hindi na ka mootil mer ka ma'am kasi hindi na ka acknowledge at yalblal sa Maria Lorio lopang ka ma'am correct rin. So sell 1 sell 4 sell final notice of default ka ma'am la already informer okay ka kasi lagi prepare at loan na kawal mo ra lawyer. Sell 1 sell 4 lawyer hindi ka sa ML mutul mga tatuor ka ma'am gid la loan na kaw. The more lawyers sa ato one silver lawyer ang ilangot ng lamor mo at tira ka lawyers na ka ma'am the maldingu a file and then mo file ay rokul babira court el file ringi es el toba da court order kung kasi okay abang amla winner talgays or kawa maral or taludo dal morabang kam el angira mel mangadari ray gagid may gagid or el angabang gam la moring akrisi el lerong may gerogul mulsir sringir secure alone either totraw malubet make some use of it mo still recover although that you owe them. So el ay nga doesn't necessarily mean kundim nakatal payment altang laring ya 1 or 2 payments altang tabnawngil haraw and then something happened mamlode kal haraw somewhere along the way. So sel omomes nga rigel balance to principal ngario rigel amount na disperse lang tulturo ko kalnaring alharaw ringi up to a certain point ko remo de alharaw. So sila blola alharaw at nila mo start ng arsigidal process and delinquency notice and mo default notice and mo referral to attorney. Once it's with the attorney and the attorney still doesn't make any substantial recovery ko rin kita charge offer nila books silang dakal swata lolomol man nga books sila bang galing tiyang am na mo dakal perform or na mo dakal generate cash flow for the bank.
So lang selling, I give estimate mo I give mo lang straw, I give him 2. Maset tangani tiriya lulumu ra program lulumu ra daso. Makada mawdudel bela malotu. Tiro ay ako behind the my galon. Elang sa mga model era other bela cook access sa sige. Those are the talks we hear before we came in. Mang sadal di kalklat kasi gitu kumase ikaw dudel belal ngilal ose seguida other belal madingir kumase dudel del bekla ada mang more information on more bekla before other disputes ay kaludod then dia kalsot seguida el dadu alorar al sela abalu le seguida mingitu utot tel program tirigel start rapal siya ulya ku el may gaigide ang lamo dia kalungil haraw melang lam asa sa program melang gidrogul el sa esel dia kalsabe del ngalon. That's the very argumental so the raising ay gaygida ay milingit utter foundation tamlaw ngilaw da show alel but in the process el dora el mo nga kadamol momti mutakan yam lem the insider information they knew what was going on and they went ahead and take it al guk malashe gidel stobrat el year or other belal hindi nasakal duli siya gidel akpay mo ko ram alin toward the cellular niya inabo tiang Pacific Island Development PIDB Bank, why say? Diwa NDBP, Palau National Development Bank. Mangsel luldasok masya Bank of Guam el maududed deposit terngak Bank of Guam mal investra market outside to get their money. Akpaim lam omdas toward that kind of concept. Kidal Micronesian countries hindi katangay kaludo dalo artiar PIDB. PIDB will invest outside dalo tu abes ludo dalo la balo mir karay kalbulu. Malaka di dalo bay kaludo del diola balo mula kargid. Ito ko sa Israel adat. I mean ngora makita kulkul way say but that's what we heard when we came in. It is sakal mo ko ramings ko ondas ringi ma o mo ringin dire kal sabel mo ko maybe away sa luldas. Musula
Hindi ako masawla senator, lungi luloklat ka. Just my personal experience in the short time ay plako binggelapang ka. I know kasi tukok patokal adal blal sa akarikik kal harabal si titigil there's tang el moti kal garigik lang tigigid ako ka tomala isela role labang kama edire kal sabil tomala isela bang galing gira malguk malmol malmurulaw rera medal so amalguk mom ere ata man diakal haraw ya kuktara ata malplakarong haraw sulang
Saula sel point ra senator sung mal important point da sa siya tara ulang mal Amerika mal overly regulated banking system ring ay gidel wal ko scheme of things policy makers sa irmulatol imo benefit their own interest mo salmal mo survey interest general public mo I'm sure continue mindful gira as you carry on your role as CEO or abanga Hindi at the same time, dungilar mo dalang tial bangga subject to annual audit, rather party direkal sige tara kuk sa assure gidik na sing ngil marala implementation regal investment regal palun. Mang kalmutul mas ka suman nga niya almutul additional information na sumal share. I think ngoram lamo bla kataklak maturity regal information plan share hindi nga niya additional plan sumal mutul eden malamol.
Hindi ako pa maral masalak may moving back and forth and I think I've kind of shared the rokul mleso kal share tadim mleso kal livery as sort of part of my closing is abela amaral mle tarayel kaldel balu lulumu or tialbang so it's a historical part of Palau, I think, to have been a part of the establishment of the bank back in 1989. Emneta raigel first el balu el fulfillers el 1 million el sharing so abelaw maududel belaw amaran play a big part in the growth of the banker sa idel time all the way el mer el ang last capital injection amne 1995 ligid telomes at kasi with $1 million over 2 million has been invested rabalu is a listing raigel applications pending processing amal kamangat so there's still a lot of opportunity marada malsori rate al access affordable capital and credit and I think that's always the key galbek kalbalul plako may sa chairman and I'm sure at the kalmoring other bela will wonder especially tigal da kalsal matang labang ngaramok tege ngaramok at part ringi ngarasel advantage and mergi dar other bela what is our return on investment and I think sel hotel lungil o singe ringi sel domesa I get contributions rigid my value of investment the still excess value of investment above what has cost us in Marablu bela 1 million and that's one thing but to be a part of an entity ngwaya la di domes trabalwa ka domes sa Tiarogil region ming kadakaw kay nga sa kaw SPL mo yeming say give a presentation on more other APIL say the regional cooperation is one of the hallmarks of membership in PIDB because Palau has benefited from that participation and that cooperation ling akmutal mo umelek keringi ay gel ko tuluto dosis ba kada mo impal identify ko sa igang asoma mo spell makarang di sel repaying mo part sel general pool of funds sa italo spelling ilon nga serar adel all over the region so I'm sure tangari trigel either part Palawans or whole Palawans in the past that kira krel bela dire kalmla either indirectly or directly benefit from PIDB because of this general pool that's available for everyone in the region to tap into. So igigid lagi mo spare elang o sigal kwasing makaraging prioritize igil new construction or alsel belaw. Even though andi nga losis mabes luto da belaw ay gidi ring mal pla karang mamlo sigaro ul at uleling musamlo ng several other alsel belaw.
O hindi ako man masaulo malung larong uduling tial PIDB kaong edel other belaw mortial bang nasol amlego to Santos Oligong eng mo otoitsi kaong edel other belaw mo ngwa kong edel other belaw mo ang waldir ka kasail other belaw am nang litial bang maku kwasit tial pro tial meeting ergida bol televising ngin mo spir other belaw mo ngila sing ngaringa PIDB ewang ra loro nga igel buk sa edel malaringi ma kadim lutul bakal morsel aigen kora pending application sa loan akor omes en wal kora o masindel dingarar aigen ang sabem kora explain no sing raul muka dingarar dai application ngara
ya kamran masaw Vice President igel nga project sa ngaring isel igel BS list el digulul top draol kamamamla mo o meeting elementary arupa kara all ito kwasay lisero ko ya diblal award el maldimor adrabalu may agim net makaloryor le tamne approach ay housing ama NDBP, and of course they saw PIDB's programs. Tulames mulkwase ay terms and conditions or kamama are probably more favorable for the type of housing development they want to do, because they want to keep it affordable, and at the same time hindi sorry lomes kasi makarangal attract their other mutal morabalu matigay del 17 nila lagi blam start the low elementary pre-qualify, and PIDB is going to take on that project the buildra all.
Kaigang kora di makan nga imol uto mang kora berberida.
Guay sakmal di kanila mappergir eli. Kora sel gumestring nga mo tetelela one regel subdivision rakwam.
Concept subdivision na tegidili ka ang rarda. Lamlo ka odinge tegidil kuk access ra fund ra financing ra PIDB. Tablol nga niya. Okay.
Solid sila. Ote Timarong akmal ngote ale mal mrenga skole me mal recognize ra tel achievement mga ringi tel uro ra ta kalgel tokoy akamal ta kadro or mi mind backling di te kita mal di onti ose ka hotel ngara kwame mal mrule ka lurura Micronesia di ame di ululu ro gam borsel tilgi be mer bela okpam ka ngara NDBP mo abangan ka umar al regal be kulbulu regal ako ka sa kamal dili wala ka sa klod ra to ra bang kam sel tum sodira ade kredi te di masaw ikademi tangar awul mun dia kam salme sa application ko mal ra wal daw agi meti ture matak trokere mal dia ka mal adama mal nekme der mam sa amno geditia seguida us palar to kolaf ngania dalang okl tan sebeil haraun din dia kasbeilo kita kapapier ngania dalang okl ngania atmir di tem titulo dikla babiel kutmuk lagam mo sel sel ut mo lulta bringi em ko rura arrongot dalang okl mo ubra ay imol blind mo ulang guk mart ortrel obli hindi la ka adel loroli segi dalam raina meringar avel makmal kautel sel obra igel be birabluem wasem dilira to kora ibai gak tenar men sa isel basyo sem to sa kotrungil blay gigil kemia kutmok ese dia kal for ibai to have that happen ya kemia amle fandrar avel kotrungil blay sele di trigel ngani ang dudir am kotrungil blay yar other go sohodara mal meringar tir to even think about one. Mak tiakor obrado ntik malos pela say kadamara los pela away gaw. Ngaram ka sa kasel belaw. El ngoso kumam. Lugut makle ay say gidulo ma. Tia ongit. Akmo say bong kat makli say at sabi mi lutan mi ayos pela sula.
Alpora halelbora Salvador.
Sula Chairman, tadeu moti lagagaw ka Lindsay Timarong. Kongel Chairman is Chairperson is Kofa Trust Fund. Welcome home. Nagya ngel CEO ra NDBP amomaray relasyon. Memo message seri durwal lebe mungsutia adar bela. Gaman sula.
Semo different subject lo plato dra akaden seltial meeting kabong mga sa ko luton mora pa ise bera
Sulat sharing, blastar to ongit, tumtia direk kolongit. Di ko nga Lindsay kita mal na kaukurol pero makmalungin mo tangalakaw. Tiya kita mal diul mul man no mol talwase the passion that you have, what drives you every day, it's all about helping others. And that's knowing her and growing up with her all these years. Saygi di akmal lultuy ringin. Dakal balgulak mula sing saygi del lududer rakwam au ul mga rakwam. Say that's secondary. Kumdas yung kat saygi del passion ringin ma driver ringin lo sing makarak na suwira tamatara at saygi di kumdas au ul ngarte del position. Akmal direct kal apladar ka o yang ka Lindsay lo mention na Vice President la se ko ngedel other belal President tel alad PIDB. Ding let me say this, ngoter radil ang aligel belaw na tulik talulgo mang tara got klol atangak pel mergi dar other belaw mal klol madingen mal klol ngara al direct mal aswari. We're in a matrilineal society ding historically ito dim ler sa ala hold legal position el autel dang okortil ang kada mal proud ang artiang witness ra awaitel tugom lamgat mo. Miss Timarong kadirek kalgoram lo mention alwase kumkara awanar omerla belula ara ada kora ola ba interested tin morbab ya kami amalas belwase makara nga interested gidel medio dong suira dasta madastala til ay gidi amal kora amil tarakral do suira marungo alwase til ay gidi lo sisiu reng til areng ra bank alwase makara dong suira at makara dong adel me dong adurgi pode sal wasin kang ngara mal tre basul adu el mo mendengel wasin magara dang sugaw ler adro ko ada kalo sisiwa situation erti makmal adamar til ay gidel guk effort trakaw ma bank el wasi medo si kolel wasi magara dal nga sirara ad especially at this time coming out of the pandemic el dira nga recovery instead of ngas attacks tong attacks el medio say gidel sisiul concept tadari yak madengay ngariya bebira kalik sirgal ngartel dakal agruinti dim naswakal ko os per example makmal again it's really refreshing el me orient sector presentation nakama mamla marula hearing laban tira bebira adrabang and it doesn't come close to this kind of atmosphere da kaningin el angal kada mal aswar sel drungu labang kal bral swaro ng sirara. Akmal de orang asulem, keep up the good work. I hope ikamat ti eklay gelon ma'am lekoral wase tarak labsay lutel ka alme the part nation building. Akmadengel wase kang arselol ngasew di lutel metmed al tang mutus eders misi isel ngesol mora arwata balwal nga rapabal daw. Sulang.
Saura te al chairman Miss Timarong and Diak Boklabir lemutolo bakal mera blue rai oh the comment mera NDVP di blagatak rai gel tol blamdung sel direction al kumran la segawa ulgang arsay longrar pana PIDB am not change right direction ra PIDB el more sel gi momrarin wasing lagirel direction na NDVP kanarong si mandakabal ko lang melek keringi hindi saka the refer back al morsel slide ra agir ko ra contribution other style balu I get shares ti agid el slide Lindsay mal so amul mamarti lek mal marur medida blagatakla akmal marur ya blur bela abo obla el waiset tele la contribution ngin mora Pacific Islands Development Bank for two reasons one kana otil mergid was sell initial investment tergid ra 1 million we've got it back twice el gukmira blur bela which we probably shouldn't have. Second, gukna arte imra slide 3 million al application al tap kadakora marur lumutlora la bebira udu dan merablur bela ding ngani ge dire kamne tu akloon magadamne charge off makiti iset maulak ko sa kada abo obla
انت هاي contribution رجيت غدا أبلا لأن قوي president سي أورتيال بانك الرذير بيلاو يا contribution رابلور بيلاو أيسي and you're not the first number terror president سي أورتيال بانك الأذر بيلاو we should be the leader in investing in PIDB منقرادي أنتيج المرغاليك سرجيت رناق ما executive branch lo se kitial namomdingan se ngania agora telgib klol lo pa Santa Claus el meta balwan el blood ring sa isel se mung la 890 million alak alwid din dirga de sang di altans edlongar ga se sirse le gidam dangla urele la PIDB e klorngud le Lindsay Timarong ang alse makura para di unti kan mara committee ma chairman margalik saranga kama executive branch se turutun man mungin masatyang I believe we need to put our money where our mouth is e klorngo de Lindsay Timarong angars ya lutan me madel dire galungil besul sulang e
Chairman, akong daswetial moktigal meeting ablada mlamaungil. Moktigal meeting amnen melor taigal siya sing yol ngitra tigal leader serbelal wa se bolsa pedal mutulo additional capital. Ak malugo mal martegi da umeso sel tigal ablul ab ang ariya FSM Development Bank. Engia ba ing maududel mailo ara PIDB asi develop ra ablul ab. Ako masayigid ya gila del most peringil. Tretale mo laudo del PIDB. Ay gigid ay gil pending application of lotob del mergid del mal clo. Yo uspe a clo ludo. El mutul tasel 1995 sayigid ay gida dir que silisa braga compact. Mumlo sepe de lo yasel 1 million. El al bladbor on erul review. التأكيد بالبلارساين رجيل ولا ما كلو ده غلطان سبيد الموت لا الموت الأتري بولو سيجيد من الضغط الإنيشال سير القدام لليان أخواتي نو سيجيد سير دريق المو لنجيت الواسي كا نارتيال الموت التراقلب سي نارتيال ما يجرا مساندي و يا مكتر تال ميتين دريق الواد قرا مي يوباتيال ما يسرنيل مابلول واسي نوارا PIDB ang raigel urerel betiang apa dorar ngina TV edri kal molngi terus okmong ngarngi ako ra contact number kar el almar belaw el sebel diril bol mimok ngarngi ar soril gol erga el gol mitrgal ko ma information diril legom chere diril ngarngi sel a program tel ngara park erngul park ra klugo kol ama to ra de melgo masadra ar ocean dil gum seped lu ka marse ko le imol ko ra gerel budul ko girela a PIDB el bol sebem dire ngarse men sera question se dire en adire amal ngil etcher dire mongil morar adablu mo to kar madangalir al sumte dia mamngar olbil dire sa madangalit tiang ya kung nasa siya balo at direkal amal klo beto ka klo dia kalau dengan dia PIDB boleh saya gitu cara digulung itu mal sebele sulang
Hindi ka ngod ang last comment ka bo dalam se inamo ay okay al sumang waise Miss Timarong ako nasa arbek alal na man na mo ongil masasyasing ra bangga ma aigel gukko sing labang ma redel going forward pausil narming ta rameng saigel petong lungil gamen tiral senators ya umrak na sing sedia kadil o singir tiral direk tela represent o singir petong other belal direk lo mesra arang alkel belao direct na ma experience el tir ma da rira urior direct lo soril masterir el me investa y del skills ma knowledge el tir al sel belao and then dial belgulak na sing more ergal mutel mer belao letial PIDB a amalmol direct el clock el belao nga niya sira ada belaw pa gire del lisi sel ownership gire ngi mo mutam lisi asia gire mo sa el maral moklo al nga swir me ar ada belaw logi utel kuk besel bang actually se emdengak maseng direct nga niya representatives ada government olbil ma executive branch nga board directors ma direct sel governing board governors al lomteera interest gid ngartial PIDB mang direct ngar alamal mo hold them accountable regel ngar alirel as a member or omteera gid ngar regal tablol board alguk me report OI sa igel progress ma development trabang at masing gire makarar other bela al as owners at al bank abol direct mo benefit malubel ta access ay igel available services el bank offer akum das selbol nga ni sa igel gora full understanding ra adat masetya gid akuk investment ra other bela nga tel entity and mo free access inquire information and sa edel motmag convince ra leadership masing ay gagida kuk daw mesel lamagungil guk the injecta additional resources sergidel mo support at bangga kum na sige gide sa el mo uling mo sa edel el gut pakri sige el ni drabanggal to inject the additional capital hoy sa Lila Vice President committee na banking na Senate mal open el lol nga sero ka tel NDBP makaul ngani ay malungilang mam PIDB malungilang mam ka maral longedel other belaw erdil namo presidente si Ortial Bang mang maral gire blisi sige del continuity ra not only our representation in the bank direct also bel ngania contribution other belaw mutul mo additional mo sa elmol nga sura mang sel event track lugo also mang if you're interested and sa edel mo coordinate kita mar staff from ma'am kada rulia announcement el sel event track lugo mo sa pira adel merse gidel event el mo sabi ilguk moniate elil me itrakaw ma further information ginabang Akti kan mal mga sulem gidel tial mal klabo ko la tial covering il report ra 2022 te gidel biska altu taw makti seri akti at tabok sharing in marafal mo sharing in marabekal senators mangidil adal sorry ko komen sa report ra bangay ga anuling alto da bangal mera aro kur shareholders mang mo mesa direct nga niya audit report el direct namin mga direct mo sharing in marabekal tikmoy gaygi de mutumal maring asulem paskate alma nganya ko last word del suamak mong dimdung ebok asmerital meeting ergi
ya amral masaulit chairman aktil mutul maring asuli rogo ratte aleng nga ka oreng kwase omgo tyang at yakal last nga ka blool lomay saigal bekal balu esel sekpo kunting elek blool o courtesy visit loban trirar other olbi lama executive branches etira blool ask for regular presentations or at least brief updates sa mga so kuming suwada dukuk ta schedule aw adyo sisiwal teleta ilal mura committee or adala senate or jointly akmal lungilar mo blool may update na.
Nakaman sa ula kung nasa sige da suadal mo mamrurungin mo o regular meeting ergi rabe kaltam available merbela malubel every so often and mga niya trip program merbela bol nga ni sige del opportunity sa pedal alguk meet lo bangala leadership especially senate ma house akpadengak mo sa nga representation all bira kalulal nga award mga di mo coordinate laban tigtigay the representative all bill also pedal rulin mo regular meeting sel pekaltam available merbela maktiklutal man mga sulem Dito ng utal meeting na gidel mertiang, ebo das mari, algo monia ako further inquiries sa edel di communicated openly. Sulang.